Hello, 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 everyone. Happy Wednesday. I'm Claire Jones. I'm an author and small publisher committed to changing the world for the better through inclusive stories and practices. And we are jumping on today for my Authorvision Facebook Live series, where I interview the amazing and inspiring authors in my network to discuss the visions that have shaped our lives and careers. So if you're joining us, please like, comment, share below. Let us know that you're here. And today I'm talking to Melanie. Yeah. So glad to have you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I think we met through networking, as most of my connections happened. So I'm glad our ships passed when they did. So
Absolutely.
let's dive right on in. Tell me your backstory. How did you get to where you are today?
Oh, it was not linear. I
Per usual. Per
Yeah,
usual.
right. So I'll try to make it fast, but it's actually really not fast. So I started in celebrity PR. Then I got a master's in journalism, and I worked as a journalist on radio and newspapers. And then I had this idea that I had to design and manufacture breastfeeding clothing.
Okay. All right. Did
Yeah.
it just like you saw it in a dream and had to make it happen?
I mean, I don't know about a dream, but yeah, something like that. I had been laid off from my journalism job when I was pregnant. And so I had this idea to become an entrepreneur. And so I kind of used Google University and figured out
Yeah.
what I was doing and made a boatload of mistakes. And like a lot. And then I hired somebody to help me with my marketing, and she was mean and belittling and said a lot of terrible things about me to me. And so she helped me run the business into the ground. And when I was able to finally, zip that up and not think about it ever again, I said to myself, well, what now? And when I looked back, I realized that kind of the through line of my career was always helping give voice to the voiceless or elevate those who weren't, maybe didn't have a platform. And so I realized that I could help entrepreneurs with their marketing, right? Which is kind of broad. But when I really got into it, authors started to call me. And I said, okay, there's something to this. And so then I started focusing specifically on author marketing. And then I brought publishing in as well so that I can help from, soup to nuts. But it's just such a great thing to be able to help people. And how predatory the publishing industry is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when people like us can speak about it and say, hey, it doesn't have to cost you X. It doesn't, these are not the typical results. Don't follow that. That's kind of one of the things that I really like to be able to do as well, is to really sort of pull back the curtain on publishing and say, okay, this is what you can get. This is what you're not going to get, because that's total load of crap.
Yeah. I love that you brought up the predatory practices because A, it's getting more common. And B, I think that we can even broaden that to be business services in general.
Sure.
Because like you said, with your first, experience with hiring a marketer, I think so many entrepreneurs I don't know if I want to call it a rite of passage, but it's, trial by fire, I think is a nicer way to say that.
I agree, yes.
Because I think that we unfortunately run into that all the time as entrepreneurs, as business owners, because there are people out there who are willing to make a buck off of our ignorance when we are starting out. And especially in the world of authors and writing and creatives, they also don't have necessarily that business background either. And so I think that they're just especially vulnerable to this kind of thing.
Oh gosh, I think we need to just replay what you just said over and over again so that people hear it and we drill it into them, because it's so true. And one thing that you mentioned, that we don't have a business background necessarily, but neither do attorneys, neither do doctors, neither do chiropractors. There are so many of us who are business owners.
Absolutely.
That don't have an MBA.
Yeah.
So Right. We do fall prey to these people who say, oh, yes, we can help you. And it's, it's like you said, trial by fire
Hmm.
and, and a rite of passage. But I think if we can at least help dispel some of the myths and maybe help steer people in the right direction, then maybe we're doing our part for society.
Yeah, I mean, transparency is key ultimately at the end of the day. Like, especially in such, because there have been gatekeepers in publishing for decades up until this point.
It's not decades, it's millennia,
Sure, millennia,
right?
absolutely. Because we're just now entering, I mean, self-publishing just entered the field like what, 10 years ago,
Yeah.
maybe? And
Well,
like,
I mean, there was always vanity presses, right?
sure.
But that's not what's going on anymore. I mean, I call myself an independent publisher. I'm not sure how you refer to your publishing offers, but there's so many different ways that you can publish now. And just like you said, the it's a level playing field now.
Yeah, yeah. And without the gatekeepers, I think there's a lot of people out there who it was what, like, mysterious information for so long. It was this like long lost tomb of how to do it, right? That was kept behind these big iron gates, and people want to keep it behind those big iron gates. And you're like, all right, let's be a little more honest, transparent, cooperative in this endeavor.
But I'll tell you, one of the things that new potential authors say to me all the time is, I don't know what I don't know.
Absolutely.
And so, and I get that. I didn't know what I didn't know. I actually, I had an issue with a kind of predatory publisher as well. Before I published my own book under
Yeah.
my own imprint, I had hired somebody and I saw the writing on the wall and no pun intended, and I went, I have to get out of this. And I didn't try to get my money back. I just left. I said, that's it. I said, I don't want you to publish my book anymore. Goodbye.
Yeah, let
Um,
me give a hot tip to people out there in terms of getting your money back. Pay with credit cards
hmm,
because you can do chargebacks. That's the only way that I've gotten out of predatory contracts like that and gotten my money back. Or even PayPal, it'll actually side with the consumer more often than not.
hmm.
So if you are, feeling a bit sus about something.
And there was a big publisher, a big hybrid publisher that folded in the middle of the night.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. Oh yeah. I mean,
and
we're seeing more of that too, is like with the advent of book talk specifically,
mhm.
news can travel lightning fast, lightning fast. And it seems like at least once a week we hear of someone being exposed in terms of bad business practices.
Yeah. So how do we fix it?
Yes. So let's wind back a little bit and ask, like, what was that vision that kept you going along the way? Was it this helping the less fortunate, helping the unseen, that kind of?
It must have been. I've always felt that, well, when I was a kid, my voice didn't matter. I
Yes.
was quieted down, and I have a lot to say, and I always have, and I've always been bold, and I don't think people have always liked that.
Mm.
And I've always been sort a bit of a champion for the underdog. And so, yeah, I think that what always kept me going is that I don't like to have grass grow under my feet. I always like to
Mm.
be doing something. I like to be productive. If you ever watch Thomas the Tank Engine, it's like you're a very useful engine. I want to be a very useful engine. And so that's kind of the driver for me is always like this little, like I have like a little rotor in the back. It's pushing me forward. Where am I going? And yeah, where I'm going is to help. I want to be able to share my message, which is to help people share their message, which I guess is a little meta.
I get it though. I get it because when we go through the experience of feeling unseen, unheard, unvalidated, unvalued, we don't want that to happen to anyone else either. Like that's ultimately what's behind one of my raison d'etre's core reasons for being is self-expression, like freedom of self-expression and freedom of creative self-expression in particular, because that was discouraged, that was diminished in my past, right? And so we often give what we didn't have.
Absolutely. With my daughter, specifically, she's very artistic. And she will actually, ooh, I can do a show and tell.
Yes, please.
So she really wanted to make something for my office. And so she made that for me.
I love it.
And so no matter what, I always want to encourage her to continue with it, because school beats the creativity out of us.
Oh my, yeah.
And I had lost it, Claire. I couldn't remember how to be creative when I got out of college. Couldn't remember. And it's now in my 40s, I'm finding it again. So having that, like you talked about, that creative outlet, that the space to be creative. I mean, that's how amazing things happen in the world, is when people have the space and the opportunity to share their magic.
Yeah. And the permission for imperfect creativity too, I think is, for me at least, that was like, I actually had to enroll in art therapy at a certain point in time in my life, because I realized that I was only using creativity for productive purposes.
That makes sense.
And I was like, I am killing myself this way. I am killing my creative spirit this way, because I only allow myself to be creative when it's productive.
Yeah, and when it comes out and it's like frame worthy, as opposed to like, oh, this is okay. Right. It's like it's not about the end, it's about the journey.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, because you have sketchbooks, right? You like this, I run into this all the time with authors, because it's like we have to write the perfect sentence right out of the gate, or like the perfect first draft right out of the gate. And I'm like, no, it's supposed to be crap. You're supposed to just play around and experiment and stretch and learn and explore, because, like, you know, artists have sketchbooks, musicians have practice, you know, and so why wouldn't writers have some version of that too?
I'm going to say it goes back to school again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because, you know, I've got 2 young kids who are going through school, and it's either right or it's not right. They are teaching a little bit differently now than they did when I was in school. When I was in school, it was, this is the answer. That's it. I have so many stories where I asked sort of almost existential questions of my teachers and was quieted down, like, don't ask questions like that, because what are they going to say?
Yeah.
So, but you know, all that to say, with my kids, they get to express themselves, you know, whether it's through music, whether it's through art, whether it's through a tantrum.
Yeah.
When you let people be themselves, they stop, that voice in their head doesn't develop of, well, this isn't perfect, so don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're already touching on lessons here. Are there any other lessons you want to add to the plate?
I feel like we've gotten really deep really quickly.
I mean, these are mini therapy sessions, honestly. That's why I love this series, because like I walk away and I'm like, man, I need to like digest what just
I need a moment. Well, you know, lessons, let's talk about, we could talk about lessons of becoming an author.
Oh, yeah.
That is scary. It's very scary. So I, for example, I'll talk about myself because I know myself best sometimes. I could not read very well as a kid. I had a lot of trouble reading. I remember not being able to read, and a lot of people don't remember that. I remember that, and wanting so desperately to be able to read. And then once I could read, I was like, I don't like this so much. I have to like think of the stories in my head. And I'm a very slow reader to this day. and a very slow reader. I have to hear the word in order to
Interesting.
move on to the next word. So that's why there are many times I have get to the bottom of a page and I have to start again because I did not catch what my mind wandered. So it was when I picked up a Judy Blume book when I was 9.
Yeah, I think Judy Blume's just a canon event for everyone.
And I picked it up and I started reading and I was like, oh my God, I love this story. I see myself in this story. And I I think I kept that book on my nightstand for the next 2-3 years. I would only read that book. I would pick it up, open at any page and just read. And it was around that time that I decided I wanted to be an author one day.
Oh.
And I didn't know how on earth I was going to make that happen. But many, many, many years later, I said, okay, I'm going to do this. But I had the benefit of knowing I could write. Because I have that master's in journalism, I have confidence in my ability to write. Not everybody does.
Very true.
So the thing that I wanted to say is that even if you are not a writer, your words, your ideas matter. And any good editor can finesse the words to make them sound like they came out of your mouth. And to really take your idea and make it more, understandable, more digestible. So don't let a fear of not being a good writer prevent you from becoming an author.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah, because I think that even trips up people who, I mean, it trips up people all the time when they sit down and they're like, I have to be a good author. Like, not even a good writer, but a good author, I think is a huge mental jump for so many people.
It is. And it's like, and so if I'm an author now, I have to be able to write. That's not always the case either.
Yeah, what is it? The second book syndrome?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've always been a huge bookworm. I've always been a huge reader, and I did try writing over the years, but I don't think I had anyone like pointed out as a skill set, which I think was my tripping up point, and I didn't really believe in it as a skill set until
Well, what changed? What changed for you?
Man. Well, I mean, my degree's in art history, and so I definitely wrote a lot for art history, like lots of papers. I got published in various like academic journals in college. And so I think that was like the first point where I was just like, huh, maybe, maybe, that was the maybe point. But it wasn't until 10, 12 years later, and I'd been writing for that entire 10, 12 years, but I just hadn't been valuing that writing for that amount of time. But Book Talk honestly inspired me at the end of the day, because I saw all these other people writing and publishing and doing their thing and like actually doing it. And I was like, I can do that.
That's great, because think about how many people would have been in your exact same position and they would have said, oh, I could never do that.
Yeah. I think it just got to a critical mass boiling point, honestly, of just being like, I could do that, And I did develop the skill set over the time of trying and failing, I think was the core skill set that I had to develop to get to that point. Because I had also launched and closed 3 businesses by that point. And so I had failed hard at that point in my life.
Yeah, been there, done that.
Yeah.
I get it.
And so I was like, nothing could be worse than that.
I know.
Even if I write a book and it fails, I don't have to show it to anyone. My businesses, everyone knows.
It's true.
So what everyday tools or practices did you use to keep yourself sane? Like, what is the practical practices that you used along the way?
For writing this book? Hmm. Oh, so I found every excuse not to write.
Mm, yeah, that's a big one.
Really, I'm really good at excuses.
Yes, I've been thinking about that.
I am like, if you need to hire like a professional procrastinator, I am here for you.
And the
I
excuses sound really valid too when you come up with
They're
them.
real, yeah, they're really good. In fact, I don't even know what time it is now, but I've been trying for hours to write to redo this PowerPoint today. I I still haven't done it. I'm gonna do it. I just haven't yet. Um, so I had to sort of imprison myself,
Mm,
not in bad places, in places I like to be. So the
mm,
first time I imprisoned myself was on Miami Beach,
mm,
which I love. I was on a work trip and I took a computer and I sat on a chair on the sand looking out at the water. And I did that until my computer died.
mm,
And they didn't have a plug. So well, then I just had to enjoy the beach. And then, little bits here and there over the next year. And then finally, I think it was Starbucks.
mm,
I think it was just a combination of going to Starbucks for, 3 hours at a time. Then the day that I did my final like edit before submitting to my editor, I was at Starbucks for 6 hours
mm.
and I didn't get up. Like I sat down and I did not get up for 6 hours and I couldn't believe that 6 hours went by. But not everybody has to be like that. I mean, you can write a half hour a day and you're going to get a hell of a lot farther than I did sitting for 6 hours in Starbucks. So yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, such a mental game.
it is. It is. I mean, it's emotional regulation too. Like, once I learned the whole like situation modification thing, like, how can I modify the situation to make it a pleasant thing more so than a chore? Like, that changed my whole game.
Yeah. Like I love coffee and I love I love one of my favorite things is to go to a coffee shop and do work. So that's what I did because that's
Mhm.
an enjoyable thing for me to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to get as cozy as possible.
No, I'm in jammies or whatever. Don't
Yeah.
Uggs, but yeah.
Yeah. Like
Cozy's good.
blankets, pillows. I have everything what I need within reach. Drinks, snacks, like as like cozy nest as possible.
I would take a nap. So I don't know that I could do your way of doing it.
Oh, yeah. I have to be like gremlin, like face peeking out of the blanket, kind of like, yeah, that's how I have to write.
I once read an article about Mindy Kaling and how she
Oh,
works in bed. I work in
yeah.
bed sometimes. Sometimes just sit with a laptop and I'm just in bed. Whatever gets you to the place where you are out of your own head and finally getting things on paper.
Yeah, but I'm also like the 5, 6 hour session kind of girl. Like, I have to really dive in deep or else I just lose my focus.
Well, it's a good thing you don't have little kids running around constantly distracting you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's my dog, honestly, that distracts me the
Oh yeah,
most.
they can be very distracting.
Yeah, my dog and my bladder, honestly.
Yeah, I'm a camel, so I'm fine with that piece of it.
Well, anything you want to add for the audience? Any tips or tricks or strategies?
Well, I think that when you are writing, you also want to think about the end in mind. And the end is really what you're going to do with the book afterward.
Yeah,
And that's really
absolutely.
where I specialize. Because so often, back to the publishing thing that's a bit predatory is that publishers will tell you, just publish a book, it's going to change your life.
Yeah,
And it will change your life in that you are now an author, but it won't do much for the book itself.
yeah.
So when you have, the end in mind when you start writing. What is my mission for this book? Do I want to use it to speak on podcasts, speak on stages? Do I want to create a course from this book? Do I want to get media opportunities? What do I want this book to do for me? That should always be in your head when you sit down to write from the beginning.
100%. I want that on repeat. You can repeat whatever I said earlier and I'll repeat that. Because so many people don't think about that, because that's going to determine how you publish as well, which so many people don't realize.
And I feel like if you read the Facebook groups where all the authors are, they're all saying the exact same thing. And it's, I wrote my book and then I self-published and now nothing happened.
Yeah.
That's why that's why I have a program called the Impactful Author. That's all we do is literally help authors who have published and nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
We help them make things happen with their marketing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of bad information out there. So
so much. I mean, Google You is great, but it has a lot of bad information on it as well.
Yeah.
And unless you have a very finely honed bullshit filter, you're going to go down the wrong road very often.
Right. Yeah. And that compounded with the fact that they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
When you feel so green, you sort of attach yourself to something that sounds good and reasonable.
Yeah. And we've all been there. We've all been duped. We've all been fooled.
Yeah. Some of us more than others.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's why we do what we do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, anything you want to add before we start wrapping up?
Maybe we could talk about, my book a little bit.
Go for it.
Okay. So my book is called Make a Big Impact with Your Book. And it is not fluffy. I was talking about this with somebody today, and I was saying, they said, I really love how compact it is. It's just got the information. And I said, yes, that's because I believe it's thanks to my mom, who will start a story like this. You're never going to believe what happened to me. Okay, Mom, what happened? Well, 3 weeks ago, and then she starts 3 weeks ago and has to take me in chronological order up until this exact moment. So I have to wait for the entire thing, and I can't handle when people bury the lead. So I'm very much, here's what it is. Here are examples. Here's how to do it for yourself. Apply it to your book. And if you need more help, go to this website and find more resources, or reach out to me and I'm here to help you. So that's what it is. It's truly how to make a big impact with your book, because I believe that every book deserves to have the opportunities.
I love it. What is that? KISS? Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think they changed it now. They don't say stupid anymore.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
That was the 90s version.
Right, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Keep it simple, keep it straightforward. Don't, go off on a tangent just because I could talk about myself all day. That's not what this is about. This is about serving, and that's what I like to do.
I love it. I love it. Compassionate efficiency is what I say. Is my MO.
You just have a way with words.
We're wordsmiths for a reason. All right, well, this is powerful stuff that we're talking about here. An audience, we definitely encourage you to share your own thoughts and feelings and insights and stories as well. We'd love to know how visions like these have shaped you in your own lives. Special thanks to Melanie for joining me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
What a great way to wrap up a Friday. So please comment, like, subscribe below. Check out Linktree/Claire Joins for all of my links. And then Melanie, where can folks find out more about you?
Oh, well, my website is chock full of everything. It is vipbookmarketing.com. And there I have a free resource too, which is really fun. It's your ultimate book marketing checklist. And you can find it right there when you get onto vipbookmarketing.com.
Amazing. And I'll make sure the links are in the description for easy access. And until next time, please remember that you all have extraordinary stories to share, and we're rooting for you as you use them to change the world for the better. Take care, guys.